Hello, Facebook Live. My name is Jesse Nolan, and I'm the membership manager for the Jazz Education Network. We are so glad to have you here today for a discussion that we are calling What Now? Music Education After COVID-19. We have with us a really phenomenal panel of music educators and a few of our Jazz Education Network chapter organizers to have this discussion. Joining me is Shamie Royston, Penelope Smetters-Jacono, Helen Cha-Pyo, José Antonio Díaz, Nic Meyer, and Julius Tolentino. Please, if you're not a Gen member, please check us out on the web. The URL is right behind me. Please join our community. We've been putting on these virtual events, a number of them over the course of the last few weeks. They will be continuing. Please stay tuned to our website and to your email for updates on live events. But without further ado, I'd like to kick this off and get things started. If you have questions, please throw them in the comments of this feed, and we will be bringing those into this conversation, to the roundtable discussion as they come in. So without further ado, Julius.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Jesse and Sharon and Kelly for hosting us again at the Jazz Education Network. My name is Julius Tolentino. I am a board member here at Gen. First of all, I want to publicly thank all the people on this panel here. Reached out to them kind of last minute because we wanted to get this conversation started sooner than later, and they all agreed without any hesitation to be here today. And we have people from all over the country representing, jazz programs and music programs in public schools, private schools, middle school, high school, nonprofit organizations, student outreach organizations. So we try to really get the whole gambit of music education and start a conversation. This whole thing kind of stemmed from the last webinar I did, and Sharon and I were talking about how, we can easily become super negative when something like this happens. And, just this is kind of the end of the world kind of talk. And, that there's no place for that. And we know that music education has been here for forever, and it's going to continue to be here. So what can we do moving forward, coming up with the best plans that we can come up with to, allow us to have our classes, or just to move music education forward, online, however it may be. But we're thinking of trying to come up with as many plans as possible and to be flexible, and just trying to be a unit, if that means a unit in your school, or as a bigger organization as Gen, or as just music educators. If we can be on the same page, we have more, let's say, ammunition for our administrators to kind of move forward and have a plan, show them that we're thinking about this now, opposed to having them come up with a plan and us kind of playing catch up. So it's always about being ahead, and I know band directors especially are always thinking ahead. So I'm going to, I think I'm just going to pass it off to each director and just have them say a couple of words, where they're from, and, their experience in jazz education or performance, and where they're teaching, and, the grade and everything like that. I'm going to start with Shamie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shamie Royston, and I currently live in New Jersey. I basically have taught the gamut of education, from little kids all the way up to teaching at Berklee College of Music. And now I teach in a middle school currently in Piscataway, New Jersey, and I am over the jazz program there as well as the whole band program there. So I'm dealing with 6th through 8th graders. And I also work with the New Jersey Youth Symphony Orchestra jazz program with Helen and Julius. I'm one of the band directors there, teaching one of the big bands and the combos. And work with Jazz House Kids, work with Sean Jones with the NYO Carnegie Hall Jazz Orchestra. So I've taught all different levels, and I'm excited to be a part of this panel discussion and just be a positive influence and give, maybe some ideas of how we can move this whole thing forward.
Great. Penny?
Hi, everyone. I'm Penny Jaccano, and I'm the band director at Cellular Cruz High School of Music in the Bronx, New York. And I teach the range from beginner to advanced jazz and 3 different levels of wind ensemble as well. And I'm really grateful to be a part of this conversation and how we can keep it forward. And I'm particularly interested in discussing how we're going to move forward in the urban areas.
Great. Fellow board member Jose?
Hello, everyone. My name is José Antonio Díaz. As Julius said, I'm on the board for Jazz Education Network. I'm also on the board for the Midwest Clinic. I'm the director of bands of MacArthur High School in Houston, Texas, and I'm the founder of Diaz Music Institute. And I'm in my 35th year as a music educator. All of it has been at MacArthur High School. Been very involved in all aspects of the band program, from, of course, all sorts of jazz groups to marching band, concert bands, the whole gambit. So I'm really excited about this particular panel. I think it's something that's very timely. I think it's very needed. So looking forward to the conversation.
Bill?
Yeah, my name is Bill Leather, and I teach at Mount Si High School, Snoqualmie, Washington, about 30 miles east of Seattle. Previously, before the last 4 years where I've been at Mount Si, I was teaching at Penn High School in Mishawaka, Indiana. It's near South Bend, Indiana. It's my 13th year teaching high school band, and currently I teach jazz band and also wind band classes and a world drumming class as well. I'm a percussionist, and I do play in our area a little bit with a local trio, and we have a really cool little small jazz community here in North Bend that I'm a part of. So really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Helen?
Hello, everybody. My name is Helen Cha-Pyo, and thanks for including me. I am not a jazz educator, but I am artistic director of New Jersey Youth Symphony and a conductor of a symphony orchestra, where half the orchestra are winds and brass. And the invitation came, I thought it was just really an amazing time for us to gather together to share kind of how to move forward in this time of uncertainties. And as we are all building different scenarios. And I think it's a time where the community like this to come together to share ideas, because one person's success is a collective success for music education. And so I'm just really happy to be part of it. I think my connection would be any ensemble playing. How do we go forward in the fall with all of the restrictions, or we may not be able to come together. So how do we anticipate that? So I'm really excited to learn from all of you and to share out some ideas.
Julius, you're muted still.
Sorry, I was saying Nic Meyer. Go ahead, Nick.
All right. Thanks, Julius. Hi, everyone. My name is Nic Meyer. I'm the director of the jazz ensembles at New Trier High School, which is a large high school in the suburbs of Chicago. I'm actually currently on sabbatical, so I don't have as much experience having gone through the trenches of this spring quarter with my students, but I've been talking to a lot of people, a lot of my friends who are teachers, and gathering a lot of ideas about what they've been doing and what's been working. And so I'm excited to hear just the collective conversation and hopefully be able to be part of the solution moving forward. So I'm glad to be here.
Great. And let's have our other people that joined us. Chris, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris Bruyere. I teach at Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington. And I direct the jazz bands here, the combos, improv, jazz piano, writing classes like jazz band arranging, combo arranging. And we're in a situation here at Central where in the middle, right towards the end we're on quarters. So that's another thing that's kind of different than a lot of places. Right at the end of our winter quarter, we were told to go all online for spring quarter. And then we had our spring break extended by a week. And so I spent 2 weeks moving everything that I do online. And so I can tell you a lot about that. And I'm also a chapter organizer here at Central. And so I met with our student president over the phone today and got some perspective from him about how things are going so far. And so I could offer that as well.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Wolf?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Wolf, and I teach at Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. And there I conduct the jazz ensembles and the combos and basically teach most of the coursework from jazz improvisation and jazz theory and pedagogy and arranging and all those kind of things. Similar to Chris's situation, right? In about 6 weeks before the end of the semester, we were told to go all online. You've got a week to get it together, and had to figure all that out. And moving forward, we're really thinking about how the fall is going to look, and we have been charged with coming up with alternative plans for all of our classroom classes as well as our ensembles. So I've been thinking hard about that, and also attending a lot of these sessions that Jen has put on as well has been very helpful, I know, to me for getting the juices kind of flowing, thinking about some ideas for that. I'm also our chapter organizer at Marshall. We have a relatively new chapter, but within, I guess this past semester was our first full semester really going. And we have like 30 members already going in that, which is fantastic. And they're not all jazz folks either. There's a lot of music education folks involved in that. So we're real excited about that moving forward. Unfortunately, this has kind of thrown a wrench in some of our plans that we already had made for next semester. So I've been thinking about how to move forward with that and keep that group active as well. So I look forward to hearing everybody's ideas on those, and hopefully sharing some of mine that I've got that have maybe a little more positive spin on them and during this time, which I think is important. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Dwayne? I see Dwayne has joined us. Hey, Dwayne Sanders.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? South side of Chicago.
Thank you for being here, man.
Hey, just wanted to check in, man, and see if there are any things out there we can jump on, and just trying to rack my brain on how to get through this difficult time.
That's great. Thank you for joining us. Les, you're on mute still.
I guess we're all in charge of unmuting ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me in late. We're on overlapping Zoom meetings nowadays, so one leads into another.
Right.
I have been a band director and music educator, jazz, music appreciation, choir, everything, music business, everything under the sun, for about 4 decades and 4 eras of music education. I've reinvented myself numerous times, and we are in one of the most needed stages of reinvention ever. But there are tremendous possibilities as well. And I'm really thrilled. I am technically retired from the California state system. Yet I went back in to teach a part-time jazz program at Santa Ynez High School 3 years ago. And this is the school for which I've brought the chapter membership. So I'm proud to have the chapter membership for Santa Ynez High School. And what I hope to bring to the table is what I've learned in the past 2 months adapting to Zoom. And I know there are several aspects of what we do that are more easy than you think, adaptable to Zoom, and maybe bringing a little bit of old school ideas of teaching and how that could come to the Zoom world. And definitely want to hear about the aspect that I am not a big expert in, but Julius, you are, because I heard your amazing webinar on technology. So happy to join the discussion. Thrilled to be here. Let's go.
All right. Thank you, Les. I think we're going to start the conversation going with I'm going to take the words from Helen at our last meeting. Plan A. Plan A would be we do come back to rehearsals. Obviously, there's going to be some kind of restrictions, and how we deal with having so many students, band, wind, chorus, in the same room with those restrictions. What are some ideas that we can kind of come up with as far as space, as far as numbers? How are we going to break, ultimately we're probably going to have to break up our groups depending on your band size and your band room size. I know for myself, I've already looked into barriers and have kind of measured out the band room, and, worst case scenario, I found the most kind of like economical barriers that would work, kind of separating my sections, because I'm really crossing my fingers, hoping that that's the case. I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts on the panel about what plan A if we do get to come back with restrictions. Nic?
I just had a thought that I've just been bouncing around with some of my other band director friends. I don't know that any state or any governor has made this decision yet, but face masks could be a thing. We could be in a world where students are wearing face masks at school, and that's a requirement. And it's really hard to play a lot of wind instruments with the face mask on.
Right.
So I think I don't have a solution to that one, unfortunately, but I think that's something we need to be thinking about.
Jose?
I think one of the things that can happen is if we think about being creative, if we're allowed to bring kids back into the classroom, then I think that if we can creatively come up with the spatial separation we need for social distancing, and maybe approach it from the standpoint of teaching it like we were in a recording studio, we would have so much distance away from each other, and think about teaching whatever music we're teaching like in chunks kind of situation, and just making sure that everyone is getting their technique aspect about it, making sure that everyone understands how the music should be performed and that kind of thing. Because, I was already thinking about this, because in my band hall, I'm fortunate enough that I have like 9 practice rooms, okay? So, and I know there's been scenarios where they've been discussing that maybe we'll have maybe 7 to 10 kids per classroom, that kind of thing. Those been some kind of the blended kind of situations that they've been talking about. So if that were to happen to us, the first thing I would do is, have the discussion with the administration and say, hey, this is an idea, and we can make sure that we are always, disinfecting the facility and so forth. But, putting a kid in every room, and even if we just kept the door cracked open and just have them play, or and some of us may be fortunate that we do have, a mixer that, that has enough microphones that can go into each practice room, and we can just, do a rehearsal that way. And it could be real beneficial for the kids too, because, they'll also get that kind of independent performing while performing within the group and monitoring themselves, through headphones or whatever situation we can come up with. That's just one creative way.
That's great. Helen, have the next.
Yes, and I think there are a lot of articles that are coming out from the medical world right now, and then looking at Germany and Korea, South Korea, just as to what they're doing, because South Korea is about 6 weeks ahead of us. They're just starting to open the schools, and Germany as well. And from what I'm reading, they're bringing 1 grade at a time, like older kids first, because they seem to be more responsible and could maybe contain themselves as far as social distancing is concerned. So they're bringing 1 grade at a time. And if we were to do this scenario building in the orchestral world right now, there's a lot of consultants who are kind of working with organizations about how to build these scenarios. And they're saying, think about the worst scenario first. So if we're thinking the worst scenario, it would be that next school year, everything is virtual. So I'm calling that my plan C at New Jersey Youth Symphony. Plan B would be something of a hybrid, like what we're talking about, assuming that we can go back, but then with some restrictions. So physical distancing for the string instruments, they're saying 6 feet apart, but for winds and brass, they're saying up to 12 feet apart, just because of the condensation. And I won't say the word spit, but that's what it is, right? You know, when you guys are kind of emptying out your valves and, you know, on the trombones and trumpets, a lot of the Germans are talking about coming up with some sort of a kind of a stretching fabric cover around the bell so that that the virus will be protected, you know, from germinating through aerosol. So they're talking about some sort of a stretchy fabric that can kind of like a sock that you can put around the bell, and saxophones and trumpets and trombones. They're experimenting with that right now. And we're really grateful. So we should really keep an eye on what other foreign countries are doing that are ahead of us. Unfortunately, I think wearing the mask for both those countries that I've been studying, it is a mandatory. So for the winds and the brass players, they're saying if they're 12 feet apart or 20 feet apart, like Jose, you said, you know, like a studio situation, then they could take off the mask for that brief period of time of playing, but they are recommending these plexiglass, you know, separations, just like when we go to our grocery stores right now, the cashier is behind that plexiglass. So those are kind of the things that I don't know if our school system has the budget to install in our band rooms. And definitely having those little pads on the floor to empty out your valves for the spit, so that personally you can throw them into a special trash can. So, you know, this one article that I came about in German orchestras, it was really interesting because they are way ahead thinking about these things. But I think it's also equipment. Like if you're doing a lot of studio kind of work, are the schools, you know, equipped to do that? It's all very budgetary kind of thing as well. So, I mean, there are other ideas, but I will stop here. I think we have to kind of assume if we could go back, with what restrictions can we go back? And is that 30% of the time we can do synchronous teaching, you know, in person, 70% asynchronous or independent or online? Is it 50-50? You know, density reduction, what does all of these mean? And so with my team and, you know, Julius and Shamie at New Jersey Youth Symphony, we're going to be building out pretty much Plan B that has perhaps like 3 different potential scenarios within that hybrid model. Plan A, I think we're going to let go of. Our Plan A is business as usual, everyone going back in person in the fall. I don't think that's going to happen, at least in New Jersey.
Jeff, did you have something? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let me see if I can kind of piece all this together. We have been giving from our administration at Marshall University some guidelines involving the return of students, and the university right now, at least, I guess I should clarify that none of us really know what it's going to be like in August or September. So this is, you know, going on those ideas, because I remember a time not that long ago when they said we would be out for 2 weeks and then we would return. So that quickly changed. So right now the university as a whole is moving forward as if students will return on campus in late August with a lot of restrictions and guidelines in place. And from the music side of things, we've been told number one, that there'll be disinfectant wipes and those kind of things in all the rooms, so you can wipe down pianos and that kind of thing. But we were also told, like for our ensembles, that they need to maintain the 6 feet space in every direction. And I did some quick back of the envelope math on that, and my big band would be stretched out like 45 feet across the room and like almost 30 feet deep. And so, like Jose was saying, my idea was to make it more of a studio kind of situation as well. And I'm fortunate enough that we actually rehearse in a recording studio. The problem with that is it is a shared space, though, so we might need to make some concessions on that because it is a working studio, but that might not be happening now, obviously, with this going on. But that's kind of more of the positive spin on it, because the way I'm thinking of things is this is an opportunity for us to work on skills that we don't necessarily have time to work on during the semester. We're so involved in rehearsal and getting ready for performances because we've really been told too that our large concerts are probably not going to be happening already. So, I said, well, what's the point of preparing an hour and a half worth of music or something for a concert that's not going to happen? Let's maybe focus in on 4 or 5 tunes that we can learn really well and have the students start listening in these and having to play with headphones, learn how to set that all up and how to play from distance, like in ISO boost and that kind of thing, which is a skill that, quite honestly, we don't really have a time to spend the time on. It might be a week at the end of the semester, hey, we're going to record this, and nobody really knows what to do. And we ended up doing it like a live recording with the band set up in its normal situation instead of more of a studio situation. So that's kind of the best case scenario that we're looking at, are ideas like that. But we've also been told as well that this all could literally change on a day's notice. So you end your Plan A classes on Friday, and you're told, well, Monday it's all online. So I would be interested to hear what people have to say about those kind of things. How you go from Plan A. I mean, obviously you have Plan B together in advance. I understand that, but to get our students on board with that and their mindset in because I know at least my students right now are chomping at the bit to get back together and playing. Anyway, how to make that transition happen quickly would be something interesting to hear, I think, from folks.
Right. Just to piggyback on what Jose and Jeff were saying, as far as being able to, if we could do kind of a studio situation, I feel like that would be just a bump up from what we're doing, at least what I'm doing now, as far as having students play on their phones and creating these virtual groups, which takes a lot of work, but it's very well worth it. I mean, I think the skills that are acquired to do that kind of playing with each other virtually is something that, like you said, we don't really get to work on, and I feel like we'll come out stronger. Mostly for the high school students, it's definitely easier, I think, when they're at a certain level, and they can be a little bit more self-critical. And I think using the tool, we're learning to use these tools in a different way. I know, like, if I have a group and I'm just working with the section, and I'm having them work on, listening to the lead player and playing with their click track, and then actually, look, guys, I'm going to actually play everybody individually in our sectional. So don't be nervous. Don't feel bad about the way you play, because it's not easy. But it's important that we listen to each other like this and see where we're falling short. And that's going to be an eye opener for these kids, because I know, even as a professional, the first time I heard myself in the studio, it's an eye opener. And to have kids listen to themselves like that, and it's going to put a different spin on the way they hear themselves and the way they, want to represent themselves individually. They can't hide in the section anymore because there is no section. All right. I'm sorry, Penny had something to say.
Well, just going along with that, I just want to say that I'm on Plan F. So I'm in I'm in New York City, and my students are in apartments, not houses. So playing your trombone is not always the business. And I'm very lucky that I have a very large band room, but like most New York City teachers, I don't have practice rooms. And so we're on Plan F here, and Plan F is flexibility. So we want to make sure that whatever happens, since we don't know what's going to happen, to be ready, to be flexible, and to go with the flow, whatever comes our way. So planning under multiple contingencies for something like that, I've thought a lot about my large room and students not all being able to play, but maybe having them still being able to carry their instruments in with them, being able to have them in that closer proximity, not playing in the back section of the room, bringing up one student at a time or a couple students at a time, and really focusing on individual playing skills. And we don't have a studio setting at all, but being able to work individually with students on things they can do. And then I think what'll be key for us in urban areas is if we do get our students in person again, to immediately go over whatever technology we can use and will be using and make sure that it's accessible for all of our students and make sure they know how to use it while they're with us. I mean, take that trip to the computer lab with your kids and be like, here is smart music. Here is how you log in. Here is how you record. Here is how you do all of these things, so that if it turns on a dime, like Jeff was just saying, if everything turns on a dime, students already know, okay, we're going into our online plan. These are the things that these are the programs that we're going to use. I already have a login. I already know how to use it. And then from that point, in whatever hybrid situation we're in, being flexible with strange instrumentation and multiple levels of students, and being able to go individually as much as possible, working towards individual goals for each student. That way we'll be able to keep their growth alive while we wait for the time that we can play together again.
Right. That's great. I mean, before we take some questions, I'm sorry, Les, did you have something to say? I'm going to cut you off.
Thank you. Penny, loved your comments, and boy, if I could put your comment along with Jeff and Helen's, we are already in the contingency. We've been in that contingency all this time, and we should think of ourselves as that's going to be the plan. Forget plan A. We're not going back to school as we know it. The UC system in California has already declared that. The other colleges will either declare that or they will have some kind of modified program. Those which we call Plan B, those that have the modified program or the Plan B, those ideas are going to come from the very, very top. And what's the very, very top in college and probably high school? It's football. Everything is going to stem from football and sports and stadiums. And if these schools open at all, how are they going to handle that aspect of it? Those contingencies, those ideas are going to determine how we conduct our rehearsals. So we're already preparing for that as we've been doing. By the way, the old New York apartment trick for your students to play the trombone or any instrument, because I lived in New York for 30 years, is play their instrument into the closet, particularly the coat closet. You could play at 1 a.m. and no one will hear you. Whether it'll be the greatest recording sound, I'm not sure, but they'll be able to practice. Anyway, right. I think all of these ideas are going to happen. And Julius, your idea of the barriers. I was listening to a show today, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. There's going to be entrepreneurs that are going to be creating products that we've never seen before, that we never thought we would ever seen in our lives. Like, for instance, we see people going to stadiums with their personal seat to sit on their, to sit in a bleacher, but yet be upright. We're going to see some kind of personal barrier created. And that is going to make its way into the marketplace. It's going to make its way into the schools because it's going to have to. People are going to have to go to public places, concerts, this, that, or the other. So there will be that element of technology. One other quick thing, if it's allowed, obviously you have a big band in a band room. If the weather allows, for the time being, outdoor practices where, yes, the students will wear their masks, and they'll wear their masks because that will come from the top. The principals will say every student wears a mask at all times. And our band students will wear their masks right up until the moment, like I believe Helen said, that they blow into their instruments. And at that point, with their masks on and maybe even gloves, they will have been setting up their rehearsal space, which, if the weather allows, could be outside. And it could be a space that we normally wouldn't use. Maybe not the band room. Maybe the band room would be too small, but maybe you would be able to have shared time in a multi-purpose room or an auditorium or a gymnasium of some type to have that social distancing. But it's going to be all of the above, and I think we should be planning that we're going to stay with online. And if any of the other comes through, a pleasant surprise.
Right. If we just moving forward with the discussion, Penelope brought up, technology, and I know there was some questions about, I'm interested to hear what other people are using technology-wise. I know I gave a big seminar on doing the virtual big band. That's one way to do it, and you can kind of look back on that. But I know smart music is something that I've used in the past and I'm trying to use now. And Sight Reading Factory has given their program out for free right now, which is another great resource. I have recently been using something called Soundtrap that I really, really enjoy. You can really use it just or this app called Acapella. It's kind of the same thing, but it's a little better for band. You can go back and forth, record yourself, send it to somebody, do projects, and you can invite people in your class. So Soundtrap is a very good, resource. I think a good platform to do that with. In my own experience, I've just started with it, but there are also some fun, you can create beats. It's really for like creating sounds and creating podcasts, but as just a straight band director use, it's very useful too. But I'm curious to see if anybody else is using any other platforms already in their classrooms to help us stay together. Shamie, Jose next. Shamie.
I've used most of the platforms that you have mentioned, but one basic one that like a lot of people forget about is GarageBand, and I've tried projects. In my district, all the students have their iPads and they have GarageBand on their iPad. So like I just kind of tweaked it and worked with it where I have my students creating a quartet within themselves. So they're recording themselves. And I'm in the beginning stage of teaching them how to set up a track, how to play to the metronome. And for younger kids, 6th through 8th grade, just the fact of them playing in time to a click track or to that right there alone is a tool that you don't realize until you have them do it by themselves and hear everybody do it by themselves. So for me, that's been like a learning tool within itself, just to get them to play to that time and then say, okay, now you got to play line 2, which is a completely different line of music, into GarageBand, playing it. And then, so they're learning like the technological aspect of it, as well as learning, the musical, learning the rhythms, the beats, all on their own. So I've really been diving into a little bit of the tool that I had on this short notice, using GarageBand as a major tool for them learning rhythms, beats, how to record themselves, and all of the above. And that's so important to be, to have many tools, especially at the younger level, because they're all over the place. They're emotional. There's lots going on with them. So it's important to have just many tricks from your bag to grab with them so you can know how to move them forward.
Right. It's great. Jose, and then we're going to take some questions.
Okay. All the technologies that's been mentioned is great, but there's a huge realization that all of us going to have to deal with, especially if you're in the big urban areas, because I have to deal with it myself as the kids that don't have access to technology. We can't even take it for granted that they have access to that technology through phones, because I got kids that don't have phones. So whatever we come up with, let's do the technology for those that have access to it, but then we also got to be creative to make sure that we are also teaching our kids that don't have that technology. So we're going to have to come up with a lot of handout kind of assignments and that kind of thing, because in a lot of situations, there's a huge population of folks that just don't have that. So we're going to have to be very creative in making sure that we're coming up with equitable education for all the kids just throughout. And I know I know in some situations it's going to be different than others, but we just got to always be thinking about also coming up with the kinds of things that are tangible for people in that situation.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Jose. Jesse has some questions.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really great questions coming in before the panel started through the survey and also in the chat. So let's get going. One of the things that was mentioned in the e-blast for this event was health and wellness, and we've had a bunch of educators ask, how do we keep our students motivated, but how do we help to preserve their mental health in the music classroom? You know, when we're going to plan C or F or Z, this is obviously a massive sea change for them, especially for younger students. College students might be dealing with this a little bit better, but how? What are some strategies that some of you might be thinking about to help preserve the mental health aspect of what we do?
Can we go Nick and then Penny?
Sure. I think I just want to make a comment that I think probably we've all sensed that now that this structure of having to prepare for, the concerts and getting in this kind of busy cycle that probably most of us live in, where, you're getting ready for this thing and then that thing and the next thing, and you start the school, you're all excited about what you're going to teach, and we get those things done, but then there's this time pressure to be able to present what we do to the community, which is so unique to teaching music. Math teachers don't have to present their tests to the community, 4 times a year. So I think this is an opportunity for us to think about, like, what do we really value about our teaching music? Like, go back to kind of like the philosophy that we all had to think about when we were in college, and hopefully we've been kind of revisiting throughout our careers, and think about, like, what do we really care about in terms of what we want to give our students in a music education. And so to this person's question about mental health, I think, one of the things we all want to give to our students is this lifelong love of music. And there have been, unfortunately, way too many tragic moments in our nation's recent history where my students walk into the classroom and I think, I'm not going to start class like I normally do. We got to start class differently today to address something that's happened. And so often I just lean on, like, let's listen to music for 5 minutes and then let's talk about it. And then let's talk about, how we're feeling, or let's talk about something that we notice in the music. So I think there's a lot of things connected to what we value most deeply about music and what we want our students to learn about music that we can directly connect with. How are we keeping them emotionally and mentally healthy through all of this?
Thank you, Nick. Penny?
Yeah, I think a big part of what we do, especially in ensemble is us together, right? So a big part of what we do as music educators is the community that we build in our ensembles and the connections that we have both with groups of students and individual students. We're the only ones who have them for all 4 years of high school, if you're a high school teacher, or all 3 or 2 years of middle school. So those students have a unique relationship with us. And I think the most important thing to do is stay connected. So when we're talking about their mental health, I host coffee hours twice a week where I'll come on Zoom and I'll send my whole band program out the code and be like, hey, who wants to join me for coffee? And we'll sit and they'll talk to me and talk to each other, and they'll say, hey, I found this great piece on YouTube, or they'll be like, hey, did you finish that math homework? And it really is something that lifts their spirits and mine every time I see them. And that way they're able to stay connected. Even when we can't play together, we can still be together. And I also think it's important to check in with the students who aren't checking in with you technology-wise, giving phone calls. One of my choir teachers has called every single student in her 120-member program individually on the phone and spoken to them just to keep in contact, and being aware of the resources that are available for your students in the location that you're in if you feel like someone is starting to slip. Because there are resources for their mental health available. I know in New York City they've got phone numbers to be called for counseling and everything, and you need to stay connected and make sure that you can access that for our students as well.
Thank you, Penny. Bill, did you have something too?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback a little bit on what Penny and Nick said, but a lot of my class meetings right now are not about music necessarily. Just providing a space for the kids to be there and to be a part of the community that they love. And the other day we had a jazz band meeting. We ended up talking about what movies they're into, or Star Wars, or it could be any topic really. So having that community aspect remain no matter what is super important. And the other thing I was going to say is that advocacy right now is so crucial, because the benefits from music, even when you're playing individually, still remain, even though you're not playing as an ensemble. So making sure that parents and the community and administrators and whoever else needs to hear it still know that playing an instrument, even if it's by yourself, is still important and still has all the same benefits that it did, even if they weren't in the class together performing music. And then, that just sets us up for even better things to come, because the advocacy is kind of spinning it into a different place than it was before.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Les, you're still on mute.
Okay, I just unmuted. Penny, I'd love to have coffee with you. Wow. You exemplify the opportunity that we all have right now, which is the opportunity to show our enthusiasm. I don't think they need as much motivation as we think they might need. Now, again, there's a lot of external things going on that are very, very difficult, that are maybe beyond our means. But in the world of playing their music, or being a part of band, or being a part of music classes, I feel that they need us, and they need being a part of us more than we think. And this is an incredible responsibility that we have, also an incredible opportunity that we have. Think about it. What does the world turn to during crisis? They turn to some kind of art, whether it's a poem, a painting, a song, whatever it is. These kids need us now more than ever. So, number one, that love that we have, triple. That enthusiasm that we have, triple. Everything that you're doing, Penny, the calling up and having coffee. I'll tell you what I do. When my band classes ended, I sent an email to all the parents of my students. I said, have them call me up, and I will give them a free 30-minute, 20-minute, 25-minute lesson on FaceTime. And several students have took me up on it. And guess what we don't talk about? We don't talk about anything except the music skills that we're working on. And you wouldn't believe how engrossed they can get with just working on our craft. So do we have to be more inventive? Yes, we have to be more inventive. But what an incredible opportunity for us to be more inventive in this world, maybe with technology or maybe even without technology. Obviously, there's a technology called Zoom or FaceTime. But beyond that, it really comes down to us teaching some kind of skill, whether it's a music appreciation skill or a music playing skill. But this now comes down to raw teaching. Raw teaching starts with that love and that enthusiasm. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. I know, Shamie, did you have something? Shamie, did you have something? No? Helen had something then.
Yeah, I want to just piggyback, but I wanted to, what I'm thinking right now is that the fact that, this happened about 8 weeks ago, the shutdown, at least in New Jersey, and we had to turn it around and change the platform and run a full gamut of programs after school. Kids are zoomed out during the day, but they still come in, right? We've had at the New Jersey Youth Symphony for all of our programs and all of big band and jazz, orchestra that Julius and Shamie our colleagues we've had more than 90% of our students participate fully and close to 100%. Now, that's 6 weeks of program that we had remaining, and so we could finish it out. My challenge personally, and I would love to hear from everyone here, is that it's one thing to close out the season this way or end the year because we're in crisis. And everyone is kind of in crisis mode, and we do need to hold our students as a community. But when we open in the fall, it's going to be a different reality, right? Our mentality is that we're starting something new. So we can't just be satisfied as educators, in my opinion, that we're going to be there as a community. We'll always be there as a community. You know, kids feel different connection to music teachers than they do with some other teachers. We know that. At the same time, if we don't engage them intellectually, if we don't engage them emotionally, because those two things are really important to music students, right? They need to get better at their music playing. And also the ensemble, the challenge of not being able to gather together as an ensemble. How are we going to quench that thirst in the kids? I think that's the biggest challenge for me as an ensemble director. It's one thing to give, a constant support as an individual player, but how do we replace that community? Not just to share out our frustrations and concerns, but actually make music, right? So there's a lot of the psychological issues where a lot of people are talking about the parents are going to be very nervous, when kids sign up for band at school. I think they'll make sure that they go to English class and math class if the schools are open, half time. But are they going to, even if we could have band, some of the parents will really have an issue with that. And so the doctors and the nurses are talking about working with the school nurses right now to have some sort of an antibody test that can be done by, all of the teachers and all of the students, and having some sort of a medical certificate that says the teachers are COVID-19 negative. The students who are participating have just been tested and they're negative. That kind of assurance might be something that admin and we have to work together to advocate for our program, because parents will send their kids to the essential subjects, I suppose, to get into college. Music, band isn't optional. If we don't have kids, our job isn't there.
Thank you, Helen. That's some great insight. Yeah, Nick, before we take another question.
I'll just jump on that real quick. I think one thing that so many of us probably know is how many times a parent has come up to us and said, your class has been the emotional relief that my kid needs in the day, right? I mean, we probably have those emails in our inbox. We've heard that at conferences, whatever. I think our administrators need to be reminded of that, but I think parents need to be reminded of that also. Parents know how much stress their kids have been under and how much stress they're going to feel in the fall. And so maybe our music classroom might need to look a lot different, but in terms of, are we performing or are we not performing? But if music is still our subject and we're still offering those kids that oasis in their day, right? That break from the stress of going from math class to science class or whatever else. And if we remind administrators and parents that that's still what we're providing our students, it might look different. We might not even be playing, but we've got music as this way to come together and also just, relieve some stress and anxiety. I think that might really help.
I'm sorry. I'm going to take Shamie's. Thank you, Nick.
Real quick, I just want to piggyback on everybody. And really what it comes down to is our deep enthusiasm and love for music needs to be portrayed to the students. Just because, because of they're used to wanting to play in the ensemble and be together. And, with my middle school students, like I said, kind of like with Penny, I get on with them on a meeting and I'm just like, hi, it's so good to see you, and just so excited. Not talking about music. I'm just excited to see them. And the teachers are like, why do you have such a huge class attendance? I was like, I don't know on Zoom, because I just love them and I just want to talk to them and I just want to share music with them. And so even with the younger kids, just your excitement, you're showing your excitement, your love, and doing things, just being creative outside of the actual ensemble playing. I tell them, take music, dance to it, sing, do something. have music somewhere going on in your house, and then try to pick up a song you hear on the radio. Just, we have to be just real creative with what we're teaching them, just to be able to engage them over the time that we won't be together.
Yeah. Yes, Chris, sorry.
To piggyback on what
Dwayne. I forgot Dwayne. Go ahead, Chris, and then we'll go to Dwayne. Sorry.
Okay. Just to piggyback on what Helen was talking about, it's so great to hear all of the enthusiasm from what I believe have been quite a few K-12 teachers. In the college world, we have a similar situation to what Helen's talking about. We've done a loose poll of our music majors, and about 10 to 20% are thinking about not coming back next fall if we're online, because the ensembles, which is what they want to do, aren't going to be happening. So we're trying to figure out how can we just maintain enrollment so that we can survive. Because if we don't, like, let's say the whole university loses 10 to 20%, all of a sudden, then we're talking furloughs of employees and all kinds of things. So that's what really has got my attention, is in my world, what's going to happen if we lose enrollment? And I think that's something to think about too, because everybody that I've heard talking so far today is assuming that all the students are going to be there, but it's not necessarily going to be true because of what Helen talked about. The parents are going to be a big factor, or whether or not they'll let their student participate.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mr. Sanders, sorry. Go ahead, Dwayne. Dwayne. Hello, Dwayne. I don't want. You got to go off mute. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hey, everybody has some really great points, and I can, identify with kind of each and every one of your points. Probably not the collegiate level, working on it, but what we've been able to do in terms of community is, man, just really reach out to the parents. I have a band app, which we communicate with the parents and things like that. And so we try to check in on the parents too, because a lot of time, those are first line or essential workers, and, whatever's going on with their world, they're bringing to the students. So sometimes students have a little apprehension or feel some kind of way about trying to get through this. On top of that, we communicate with the students. So Penelope, I'm right there with you. Hey, we're still in this together. When we get on the Zoom or whether it's the band app, it's really just like a big party, before anything happens. And then we do a kind of a lemon squeeze, whereas everybody gets to kind of, say some things that's getting on their chest. And I think that's kind of therapy, for the student, to let them know that, you're really not in it by yourself. So, we kind of, do those things. And I'm just going to throw this in here real quick. We actually just did a social distancing graduation for our seniors. So parents actually put some things together. They had the signs that you would put in the yard. We kind of did that every third space in the parking lot. And, we kind of, just try to let the seniors know, even though you're not going to have this graduation and all this other kind of stuff, let them know that we're thinking about it. And so moving forward with music, my plan is kind of what Les was talking about. Man, we probably will have some outside situations. Up in here, Chicago, it really doesn't get cold until like October-ish, but, being a marching band person, we just might have to be outside with a couple jackets on or something like that, but the bigger picture is, students have to know this is a real thing. There are going to be real things in their life that's going to happen after this. And what's going to be the determining factor is how do you react and how do you just push forward? So that's it for me, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Dwayne. I'm going to take another question from Jesse.
All right. So a number of people have pointed this aspect of this, new paradigm out. And I wanted to ask the panel, two individuals in particular, Mark Hybert and Becky McChrystal, have asked the question whether or not any of those of you who teach primarily ensembles are thinking about pivoting away from the ensemble model towards a more holistic model of music education, for example, composition, theory, history, improvisation, harmony, etc., in an effort to create, a more comprehensive music curriculum for your ensembles when you can't have large ensemble rehearsal. Anybody have any thoughts on a pivot away from the ensemble model?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to chime in first, but I think it's allowed us, it's given us an opportunity to do those different things. I've been teaching group classes almost like a private lesson where I have these very specific skills, improvisation skills, baseline skills, like all these different lessons that I give to the whole class. And, as far as transcription, things that we would normally not do. And I know Nic is great about this holistic point of view. His whole program at New Trier has that vibe to it. So I'd love to hear what he has to say about this as well. But the other day we just did a Netflix party and we watched Birth of the Cool. The first half, that's something I've been meaning to get to. It was great. And on the last topic we talked about, like the most realistic, the most normal I felt with my band is when we're just talking about nothing and just having fun, and that element, it's such a different animal, like teaching and just talking the whole time and having them play on you and trying to put these groups together. But when we're just having conversations in smaller groups, I think is key, like we were talking about before. I know Jose wanted to jump on this topic, so I'm going to go to Jose next.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to stretch into the other areas that me personally, I think is lacking in music education anyway in high schools, because we can really just zone in on the things that if kids want to be involved in the music industry, the things that will help them the most is being able to compose, being able to arrange, being able to learn about recording techniques and all of that. And I won't go to details because everyone knows what I'm getting at. But the other thing I want to say, before any of us can do any of this, we got to approach everything in a super positive way. And I know we're mentoring parents and all this, but you have to be an advocate for your program in a positive way as a team player with all the admin in the school, and beyond that, also in the school district. Because if we don't keep them thinking about your program in the first place, none of the other stuff that we would like to do is going to happen anyway. And one of the things that we also got to really do, and we got to be really careful, is how we send the message about our programs. We got to make sure that when we're mentioning our program, that we first are thinking about, the health of the community, students, and all of that, because, this was a total disruption. So, we're in that phase right now, and there's going to be that phase where now they're going to adopt to what the new way is before we can go into what they call innovation. So, and there's going to be more disruption that's going to go on. So as we think about moving on into the future, we got to think about planning on such a multiple levels, because there's going, from what people are saying in terms of the scientists and all that, there's bound to be another kind of spike in the virus. So there can be another disruption to classes if we're allowed to come back. And so we want to have our curriculum set up so we can deliver it that way. So how we approach administration so that we can have assistance, so that way we can deliver our programs on a multi-level for all the kids that we have that have access to great technology, to those that have none, will be able to get that kind of education we're looking for.
Yeah, Nic, we will go to you. Jesse did want to kind of chime in here.
Yeah, Jose is kind of very eloquently discussing a topic that's being asked a lot in the question. So I wanted to see if we had some other comments on it. And the basic premise is, there are a lot of directors out there who are looking, and music teachers who are looking for proactive things that they can take to their administration. And I'm sure many of you have been having conversations, as you said before, with your administrators. There's been news articles about states considering shutting music and sports classes down entirely. I know that other districts and universities are trying to figure out what to do. What is your advice? What are some things that you would recommend the audience, the directors, the teachers out there proactively approach their administrators with in order to, preserve their programs?
Oh, Penny? And then Dwayne, you got the next one.
It's always a good reminder for your administrator that you're not a band teacher, you're a music teacher. And that you're going to deliver the message in whatever format is safe and available to you at that time, and keep going from there. So if you've got a plan, and I think it really depends on your individual strengths. So if you're awesome at composition and theory and you want to do a whole unit on that, roll up on your administrator and be like, hey, I'm really great at this. So if we can't have ensemble class, I'm going to do a unit on this. If you're a tech person and you've got the facilities, we're going to do music sound engineering and recording this semester. So if you come up with a plan that's strong to you, it doesn't always have, there are multiple things we can do as music teachers that aren't ensemble.
Yeah. Dwayne?
I think I'm going to go along with what Jose said, but I'm going to also say, why don't we just go ahead and present the plan to the administrators right now? Because obviously, some of us are not in those higher up conversations. I know I'm not, but, I would like to, at least, give my administrators the confidence that, hey, I'm thinking ahead. I am a team player, and, I am really thinking about the best situation for our students moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible point, Dwayne. Yeah. Act now. I'm sorry, Bill, and then Jose.
When Penny was talking about strengths, it just got me thinking that the other thing that we all need to be doing, if possible, is utilizing the strengths of the staff around us. So, I'm just thinking in my district, I have 3 middle school band directors, and everybody's got certain things that they're really good at. And we've got 4 music teachers at the high school, 2 choir directors, 2 band directors, and an orchestra director, and, our elementary music staff. So why can't we think about, if somebody's really good with theory and composition, maybe they're focused on creating units of theory and composition K through 12, while somebody else is focused on music history or listening or whatever that may be. So there's all these possibilities that people can collaborate within their team and reinvent the team of music rather than me just teaching high school band. Maybe I'm teaching K through 12 music, but in a different way, utilizing my strength. So that's just something that came up when Penny was talking about that.
Thank you, Bill. Jose, did you want to add something?
I think the most powerful thing that we can do for our schools is collaborate. I think we need to collaborate with every aspect of every single department that we have in the schools. And I also think that we need to keep our strongest, we got to keep our image in front of everybody. And the best way to do that is to make sure that we're involved in every aspect of whatever social media and any kind of announcements that goes to the website and that kind of stuff. Keep ourselves. And yeah, it's going to take a lot of work on our part. It's going to mean that we're going to have to really roll up our sleeves and really dig in there. But I think there's going to be so much respect that we'll be getting from just everyone from the entire building. And once you start becoming that person that they feel that they can't do without, and they can't do without your program because of how it's just woven into the entire fabric of the whole school, I think then that way we can really elevate, and we can also go to another level. I'm excited with this opportunity because I think not only are we going to be able to hang on to the kids we have, but then by introducing all these other things, think about all those other kids that didn't want to be in a marching band, didn't want to be in a concert band, But then you start talking about these other kinds of programs that we're starting to do now, writing music. Oh, I'm interested in that. So then you can start pulling in some other kids as well. So I just think that we just got to think about collaboration. We got to think about beyond what our normal scope in terms of what we've been doing in our jobs. And I think that we just got to look at it from just a different angle and just keeping our face in public, in front of the principal's view in a positive manner, and always volunteering to make sure that we're involved in all social media.
Yeah, I know all the directors on this panel especially are advocates for their program. You have to be, and that's the reasons they're doing great things and continue to do great things outside of their programs as well. And I know there's so many opportunities right now with like different morning meetings that you're having. There's all these kind of video opportunities that your schools really need content for. In fact, they're at a loss right now for content because they need to put something out every week. So like Jose says, you got to roll up your sleeves and just pump out the content with your students. And that's going to help you get in front of your administrators and your school community and not let them forget about you. I see with athletics right now, they're trying their best to kind of be at the forefront of this too. Les?
In addition to that, we should be building on what we already have with our students. In other words, if we have an enthusiastic group of students that are in our classes right now, let's take that email list of all the parents and all the students and let them also contact admin and say, hey, by the way, we just want to let you know we love taking our music classes, and Mr. Rose is going to continue with the music. He's going to add studio recording and composition and percussion and all kinds of classes that we never thought we'd be able to have before. And Mr. Principal, I hope you'll keep our music classes going in the fall. So utilize what you already have. If you have that database of parents and students, let them shoot the email to admin and let them spread the word. They're the biggest advocates, even more than us.
Right. Helen?
Right now, the League of American Orchestras, there's a national conference going on. And this morning I learned this term, how to best utilize the platform, online platform, to advocate for the arts and the importance of it and how it is really essential in our lives. But this one pair of words, explore and exploit, right? Explore, doing new things, innovative things, using the social media, the websites, and like Julius said, they need content. And, even if it's like a tiny video clip that you can share out to the entire school body that is musical, but it sends a different message, which connects with the community, you're already in the front of all of the parents, because I'm a parent and I'm constantly looking for whatever the content the school is sending. But exploit, better way to saying is maximizing this opportunity, right? And this is kind of using the content that you already have. Even playing some of the recordings of the previous concert to remind ourselves and remind our community, because it's an opportunity where if you can use that video where some of the parents have never heard your ensemble play because they never go to your concert. But if you play it out, even a 3-minute clip, they'll be like, wow, that's our jazz ensemble? Wow. So it's just maximizing the content that you already have. You don't have to recreate it. Just bring it back and share it out to a wider community. Yeah. I think that's a great advocacy.
That's a great point. Jesse, do you have another question?
Yeah, I've got two more. Let's do a fun one. And let's see if we can have no repeats on this question. So it's a two-part question. We're going to give everybody a chance to answer. What is one music application, like an app or a piece of software or a website, even something digital, virtual, that you were using before that has become essential to your distance teaching? And it can't be Zoom or Skype. It has to be a music application or site. And the second part of the question is one application or site that is new to you since this crisis hit that you really can't live without now.
Okay.
So 2 music apps, one from before that is essential to you now, and something maybe that you've learned that is new to you that you couldn't do without in this moment.
Chris, you had your hand up first. So why don't you go first?
Yeah, the one that I've been using for a long time that has become even more essential is iReal Pro. I use that with my jazz piano class.
It was like, that was my
well,
no repeats. No repeats.
No repeats. Damn. I'm going next.
So that's been a great thing. I know that those of you that use it know that there are some built-in problems like latency on certain Android phones. At least that's what I run into. But that's been essential. And the one that, it's a big surprise to me, but I hadn't really used GarageBand much. But now I use it almost every day to generate content. And just before I got on this call, I was editing content that I was playing and talking for my improv class. And so those are the two that I would lay out there for me.
All right, great. You know what? We're going to try and write these down as well. Jesse, can we take some notes on these and get out? We're going to try also get out an equipment list and some of the apps that we used for any directors. I'm going to go next and make it easier on myself. I'll say YouTube. You know, we all used YouTube in the past. I've used it more than ever. There's also ways to do play along background tracks on YouTube. Sometimes I go there before iReal Pro. iReal Pro is great. And Logic, you know, I never used Logic before, and I used to use Pro Tools, and now Logic is something I deal with every day, as well as Final Cut Pro. So those two are major ones. I'll let Shamie go next. You have something for us, Shamie?
Yeah, I've never used acapella. So, and me and some of the other band teachers in my district have got on different instruments, and then we gave it to all of our students in all of our schools, like as a Friday fun thing. We dress up and, you know, play all kind of crazy songs together. But it was kind of a fun music tool, you know, just even for the faculty and staff to see us come together and produce music for our students in a kind of fun way. But everything else, I've been using Logic Pro, you know. Logic is probably one that I'm kind of new to and still getting adjusted to.
Bill? Others?
Yeah, only thing I was going to say, well, Julius kind of stole one of mine, but to add to him, I just started learning Logic Pro X, and to add to that, I believe Apple has a great package deal right now for 5 of their pretty high-profile programs, including Logic Pro X, Final Cut Pro, and it's like $200 for these 5 programs, which is like a crazy discount. So that would be something that I'd recommend everybody check out if they're into that. And then something I used before a little bit in my past, Smart Music and Sight Reading Factory. Those are 2 things we talked about earlier. But Sight Reading Factory, I didn't realize had so many capabilities, especially with creating assignments and tailoring them in the right way, and really kind of expanding something that I think is a weakness of a lot of students. So Sight Reading, something that I use before, never. It's been really great.
Great. Jeff?
I'm going to come at this slightly differently because this is an application that I was familiar with, but it's one that my students started to use and couldn't live without, and that is MuseScore.
Yes, that's a great one.
On our campus, we have a MIDI lab that has Sibelius and Finale in them, and that immediately was shut off to them. And so, for example, all of the work that I had to do in my jazz theory class and my jazz improvisation class for transcriptions and that kind of stuff, they all had to do then in MuseScore and learn how to export that out as a music XML file so then I could view it in Sibelius and that kind of thing. So that was really essential to them to have that open source music notation software application available to them. One that I can't live without, I'm going to walk a real fine line here, and that is YouTube shared playlists.
Nice.
And so that, you know, I used to usually make playlists and that kind of thing on our university learning management system, which I still could have done, but using the YouTube playlists, we could be in a session like this, I could have that ready to go and just send them over the chat, that link, and then we're all on the same page together with that. And then they have that for their studying and outside work as well. So that was helpful to me.
Great. Any other apps, Penny?
So I have one that no one mentioned. Yay! It's there's a website called Virtual Sheet Music, and it's a subscription-based site, but they've got a lot of like quartets and trios and like strange instrumentation, and sometimes you can change the keys. So if you're looking for rep for like smaller groups of students, especially if you're doing things with a cappella, there's a lot of cool stuff on there, and it's not very expensive. And then also Google Forms. I have never used Google Forms the way I'm using it now for assignment completion, especially when I have them look at things on YouTube like everyone else is saying. Google Forms has been a lifesaver in getting kids to turn stuff in.
Right, that's great. Dwayne, did you have one, Dwayne?
Yeah, I did. I had experience with it before, but one of my go-to apps especially for the phones, since our students are so connected to their phones, is Sound Corset, which is it's a metronome and a tuner all in one. It does record students as well. And it's been really good. And students are able to share, at a moment's notice, their recordings with each other. So, I try to get my student leaders, section leaders to, model the way, and then, send that to their, sections and say, hey, this is how we like you to lay it down. I'm kind of with Penelope with this one. Google is the new way for me. It's like, wow. I never knew. I wasn't a Zoomer. I am from the Zoom generation, so I will be Zooming more.
Oh, Les, app.
Am I unmuted? I'm unmuted. Okay. Just a very quick recommendation for a metronome app that I found really terrific is called Pulse, and it's a free metronome app. And I found that using the metronome is really more vital than ever. We're obviously now using glorified metronomes known as GarageBand and iReal, but particularly for jazz improv, where you're not going to be dependent on some device feeding you the chords. You have to learn the chords and know the chords and navigate the chords. Just using a really excellent metronome is great. And what Pulse is, it's got a great sound and it pulses, so you can kind of see it as well as hearing it. And by the way, don't underestimate good old pencil and paper, especially on Zoom. I'm teaching adult ed jazz improv, and I'm finding myself, yes, I can screen share myself doing a chart, but I'm also finding the great value in guiding a student to create their own chart with my guidance, telling them what chord symbols to play. You'll be surprised how they don't even know how to number the measures on a lead sheet. And they don't realize that in creating a lead sheet, you should do 4 measures on a line. And some lead sheets that we get from various sources might have 5, 6 measures on one line and 2 on the next, and then the double bar in the middle, and chords that are all, some right, some wrong, and just verbally guiding with everyone taking a break from looking at the screen for a few minutes and actually looking at a piece of paper and handwriting their lead sheets or their chart and getting the benefit of that. I mean, every great photo of Henry Mancini or Stravinsky, you see him at the piano with a pencil and a score paper. So, some of that old school stuff is really applicable right now. Thank you.
Right. I think we got time for one more question as a wrap up. Thank you again for all coming. Thank you to this wonderful panel. We're going to create a list of those apps for you guys and maybe some equipment. And, you can go back and watch actually the panel as well. Just some things some other apps, drones. I use drones on YouTube for intonation. We've been talking about a lot of metronome, but drones are awesome. There's a great drummer app where you can play with somebody sounds like Elvin Jones and just play along at different tempos. That's a really cool app. Soundtrap, which I mentioned before, and Note Flight. And this is not an app, but what I'm wearing on my face, these glasses are blue light glasses. And Helen hit me to this because I've been getting headaches in front of the screen, YouTube, Bill, and I don't wear glasses. These are for specifically being on the screen so much. It's been Drum Genius. That's the name. Yeah, thank you, Nick. But the glasses have been a lifesaver for me. Jesse, we have another question?
Yeah, and I got my blue light glasses on too.
Yeah, nice.
Because I sit here all day staring at these screens.
All the cool kids.
Yeah. So before we take this last question, I just want to say thank you everyone out there for joining us, for listening to this panel today. We would love to have you join our community. If you're not a member, check us out on the web. here at this URL. If you register for this session, I'll paste a link in the chat here. If you register for the session, you'll get a discount code. It's actually a Join Now, Pay Later code. We'd like to have as many people join our community as possible and participate in these events. We are also advocating that you start a chapter at your organization. So if you go to our website, I'll paste another link in the comments for our membership page. You can learn all about our chapters. Many of the panelists today are chapter organizers. When you form a chapter, it costs you no more as a director. It's the same price as a regular membership. All of your students, if they're under 19, get a free membership to Gen, which means they get all of our resources too. If your students are over 19, they can join at a deeply discounted rate, which also makes them eligible for scholarships and all of our other programming, such as the Sisters in Jazz program, Young Composer Showcase, et cetera, et cetera. I won't bore you with that, but please check us out on the web. Please join our community. All right, so the last question, and I think this is one that's on a lot of people's minds. How does this new educational paradigm ripple into the future? What aspects of what we are being asked to do now, or that we are planning to do now because of this crisis, are going to stay forever? Particularly, many people have asked about the virtual aspect of this. Is virtual going to go away when we come back together? What is the total ripple effect when things go, quote, back to normal?
Right. I think we'll have everybody speak a little bit on this, just like a minute or two to wrap up. And I know Helen has to kind of go early. She has another meeting to go to, so I'm going to hit her first. But I would be remiss not to wish our founder of Gen a happy birthday. It's her birthday today, Mary Jo Papich. I almost forgot at the beginning, but everybody give some love to Mary Jo. I know she's watching, but we love you, Mary Jo. Thank you for creating Gen, and we're always, here for you. So I'm going to let Helen go.
Thank you, Julius. I've learned so much from all of you, and it's just great conversation. I think I stay hopeful that we're going to come out of this having learned a lot about ourselves, and also kind of renewed commitment to teaching this art form in a way that we know that music changes our students' lives and whoever is around us. And I think I don't think it'll be the same, and I don't think it should be the same. I think we need to come out of it with a new normalcy that is even better, somewhat refreshed, kind of putting together the best practices that we were forced into, but coming out of it, finding all of the silver linings and putting it into a curriculum that is so reaching and creating more access to the music education, creating more equity, inclusiveness, working with the tech community in this country and in the world to better ourselves. And I think musicians, we are screaming and saying to Zoom, make the sound better, would you? I mean, why can't you make the sound better? At least, Zoom, if you're listening, make the sound better for us. I think we have to work together. And so I'm remaining really hopeful. And the fact that New Jersey Youth Symphony, as of today, we have 535 students signed up to audition on Zoom for next season. If they are not hopeful, they wouldn't have signed up. If the parents are not valuing music education, they wouldn't have signed up. So I am really hopeful. And I know with the creative minds that we have and the passion that I'm like soaking up through the screen right now, I know it's going to be a better future.
Thank you so much, Helen. And don't worry about if you have to split it. We understand. But thank you so much for being here. Jose, did you want to go next?
Sure. I think it's going to be better than ever. I think, the virtual stuff is going to stay for sure. Okay. But I think that once we come out of it and think people can come back to school, no mask, all that stuff is great. It's going to be such a huge celebration of life and freedom that can only be expressed through music at this highest level. And I think band programs are going to grow everywhere. I think we're going to get more people involved in the arts than there ever has before. I think we're really looking at an opportunity where this is the way I look at it. I think this moment's been brought to us where we have to rethink, retool, and then when we come out of it, it's going to be bigger and better than ever.
Agreed. Thank you, Jose. Shamie, I'm just going to go down the line.
Kind of piggybacking on Jose, yeah, I think we're going to become more resourceful and more used, basically, because in our society, the arts are what people run to in general, whether it's dance, singing. And so us as music educators and what we've been thrown into on how to create, we have to be, our minds are in the creative space anyway. So now it's like we're learning to create, learning how to be even more creative to get our jobs across to the students, as well as learning technology, as well as being applicable to the staff, the students, parents. It's like this is our world. And now everything that has been thrown at us, I think at the end of this, we're going to be even more resourceful and more useful to our schools, to the public, to society, and not just as educators, but just as artists in general. I know as artists in general, I think this will help all of us just become better in whatever we do.
Right. I'm going to piggyback on that to go next. I do think, like everyone said, that we're going to come out stronger. Like Helen said, being more resourceful. I mean, it's already allowed me to do things I thought I would be doing, and things that have been on the back burner that I'm doing now that are going to be not just great for my program, but everybody else's program by, putting this stuff out there and helping, just a wider reach. We're running a camp this summer at NJYS, and we're having musicians from all over the world, join the camp. And then, I would never be able to get, Sean Jones, Kenny Rampton, all these great musicians to actually be at the camp and teach a master class. This is another way that we can all kind of also think about the jazz community, not just as educators, but as performers, to help these performers that are going to be struggling for the next couple of years in New York City and all over the world, not being able to tour. And some of my friends are all of our friends are really struggling with this, that don't have, maybe a steady teaching gig. So use this opportunity, and I hope a lot of people are hearing me right now, and reach out to those musicians and have them talk to your class and pay them. If you have the budget, help these guys out. I'm having people run auditions. I'm having people just come and talk to my students about their life in music. Please reach out to the jazz musicians that are depending and have given so much of their livelihood and their lives to this music. Please reach out to them. If you need a list, Jen, we have a list. Reach out to us and we'll get you that list. All right. I'm going to go to Penny next.
Just piggybacking on what everyone says, I think there's going to be, when we finally come out of this, such a great appreciation for being able to be together and to make music together. So I don't fear for the death of our ensembles to technology. I think it's just a matter of time before we're back together again and making music. And there's so much, we're longing for it so much now that when we get back, it's going to be amazing. I think that there's going to be so many resources are being created from the creativity born of this situation. So many great resources are yet to come. I think that we're going to really have a lot of new tools. And I'm actually a little glad that this has forced us as ensemble directors in particular to be pushed forward a little bit and into this era of technology and being able to use all the great tools that are available now and that are going to be available to us before this is over to enhance what happens when we can come back together again. So I'm just really excited. And thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you so much, Penny. It's good seeing you again.
You too.
Bill?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody. My brain's been turning this whole time just with great ideas and things that I'm going to keep thinking on and come back to my music team with and build off of. So thank you for everybody's comments and questions and for having me here. I honestly, I think we come out of this not necessarily just being restricted to what we always did, which is kind of a cool thing. There's programs that are solely focused on ensembles only all the time. So maybe, programs like that might find some value in doing some different things like composition projects or improv projects that they wouldn't have done before. which is a really cool opportunity and thought. And, I think we'll all come out of this better and more resourceful, with a greater toolbox, a bigger toolbox that we're going to be able to use not only to benefit our effectiveness and instruction, but of course all of our students. So that is exciting. And, like today, Julius, you mentioned artists. Today, right before this call, I was on a Zoom call with Terrell Stafford, just because I emailed him and said, "Hey man, can you hang out with my kids today for a jazz band?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem." So we just hung out. I mean, those types of things are not coming about without this situation. And the thing I keep telling my students is that you have to continue to look at the positive that we're able to have from the situation. And then let's keep those positives after we are back normally. Right. Because, Terrell was amazing, as he always is. And I love that guy, and his playing is amazing. But we wouldn't have done that probably if we hadn't had this situation. So that's something that's very exciting and very cool to look at for the future. And I also want to say goodbye to everybody. I have a Band Booster meeting that started 5 minutes ago, so I'm gonna head off to that. But thank you all so much for having me. And it's great to see you all.
Bye, Bill.
Take care.
Thank you again for coming,
Thanks
Bill.
for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Shout out to Terrell Stafford. That's our man. Chris, I'm just gonna go down the line in my Brady Bunch view here.
Well, I would just reiterate what everybody else has said. To me, one of the most exciting things that could come out of this is something that José Diaz mentioned earlier, and that is, what about all those other kids that aren't in our ensembles? Maybe our music programs are going to now have room for them in some other way. And I especially see that happening at K through 12. In the college thing, everything's so locked in because of our curriculum. But who knows how, over time, how that could develop into a whole nother other way to reach kids musically that have never been reached before. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also thinking, I think the first question was, what's going to stay? I think the technology, what I've found is with a couple of my classes, students are actually learning better by doing this online, which was a surprise. Mm-hmm. And those aren't ensembles, of course, but I can see also using some of the recording stuff that I'm doing with my big band and combos being an element in the future, because that's being successful too. So there's lots of things. And to sign off on this, just thanks for having me. It's been an honor to be involved.
Thanks again, Chris. Jeff?
Well, first, I just want to thank everybody for having me. It's been a good time, and I really appreciate the opportunity for this. So I loved hearing everybody's answers. They're got the wheels turning for sure. Probably not going to say anything that hasn't been said already, but I just see this as a great opportunity to add supplemental materials we might not have thought of to begin with. I think a lot of the negative feelings we had about going online when we had to do this initially is because we were made to. And if you're like me, I don't like to be made to do things. And so I'm just thinking if we would have come up with some of these ideas that these fantastic creative ideas have done these back, in the good old days of early March, the reaction that people would have got, like, this is amazing, like you're doing this online thing and you're also doing your regular thing as well. And so just as an example, at Marshall University, we have a summer jazz camp that's gone on for like the past 21 years. And obviously that can't happen this year, where we have students come to campus and they stay on campus and we do the whole week long kind of jazz camp thing. And we've moved that online. And the information of all that went out, I believe, on Tuesday. And by today, we have more people registered for that than we normally get in person. And folks that from way far away that would never come to our camp in person. And so I see this as a supplemental thing to be doing periodically throughout our semesters, because the lifeblood of any university music program is recruitment. There's not a faculty meeting that goes by where the R word is not mentioned. And I see this as a way to reach a lot of those students that might not come to campus or might not come to your camp, as a way to intersperse this kind of technology as well as all the great supplemental materials that have been made and ideas that people have come up with, and to use those in between our normal, quote unquote, normal kind of thing that we're doing, I think actually is going to be a net win and positive for everybody involved in this. So again, thanks everybody. Hope everybody staying safe out there, washing your hands and doing all that kind of stuff. So
thank you, Jeff, for being
thanks.
here. Nick? Sorry, Nick, you're on mute still.
Sorry, my space bar is not working. So yeah, I think I'll piggyback on a lot of things that people have said already, or I won't piggyback on them because they've already been said. But I teach high school, and so when kids come back after their first year of college, so often what they say is like, "Man, I miss it so much. I miss just being able to play every day." And so I think for so many of our students, they're going through that, right? We're going through that, and they're going through that. And so I think what is going to snap back quickly is like a realization for how much they just need this as part of their lives. And so I think that this is putting all that in very stark contrast. So I think the value of being together and feeling the wavelengths of everybody's sound in the same room, I just think, I think we're going to be amazed at how much we've missed that when we get back together. And then what is going to stay from maybe what has come out of this, I hope, is maybe, if we all go through a reevaluation process of our philosophy and like, what do we really want our kids to learn about music from us? And are we finding the time to teach some of those things now because we're not in our regular kind of schedule and our regular pressures? Are we teaching them to be independent musicians now in a way that we don't get to when we're really focused on our ensemble things? And can we integrate some of those things into our teaching? I think, like so many people have said, we're discovering new, really cool things that we've been wanting to teach our students that we now have the time to. I think we're going to see our students flourishing in a lot of ways that we didn't expect. And I think, it's incumbent upon us to bring those things back into our classroom when we do go back to our regular ensemble teaching.
Thank you so much, Nick. Dwayne.
Wow. It's been a lot said tonight. I think moving forward, what's going to be on the minds of students is, how together they were in these ensembles. And when they, when you were there, sometimes you really didn't want to be in practice, and now that you don't have it, now you're like, oh my God, I got to get back. So, I think that's one of the things that's really going to be impressed on students' minds. What I do see moving forward is a lot more on my part to, sharpen the salt, if you guys know what I mean, to, add more of these, these other things, and try to move away as much as possible from just the whole ensemble set and try to get more things in there, whereas we can not adjust, but we can get to that core spot in that each individual learner. And that's what I'm looking forward to getting into.
Thank you so much, Dwayne.
Thank you, guys.
Les?
Well, throughout history, it's always been musicians that have been at the forefront of seismic changes in culture. I mean, look at Bob Dylan, John Lennon, Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis. Of course, we're going to be the ones at the forefront of this seismic shift. And because we're forced, so to speak, into this online format, we're going to be the ones that will be able to reach out to our students, create, like Chris said, new students that were never in music programs before. But even more important, we're going to be able to create new and more educated audiences. So the only thing that's going to be more exciting than the first live concert that comes back is going to be the first Yankee game at Yankee Stadium. So we're all looking forward to it. And Zoom is here to stay, but live is coming back.
Jesse, do you have some final words? Or, I know Kelly and Sharon, if you want to chime in too, of course, it'd be a good time.
Well, it sounds like everybody's looking forward to a new musical renaissance, perhaps in the 21st century, either in music itself or perhaps in education. And I think that's a really promising thought, that coming out of this, there's going to be an explosion of creativity, but also, as Les said, the need for audiences to get back to the concert hall, to get back in their seats, to get back to interacting with musicians and jazz musicians and hearing those amens and those hoots and those hollers as people play those solos. I'm sure there's going to be, elation when that happens. Thank you, everyone out there, for joining us. I absolutely want to extend my gratitude, of course, to the panel today: José Diaz, Helen Cha-Pyo, Shamie Royston, Julius Tolentino, sorry, Julius, Bill Leather, Nic Meyer, and Penny Smetters-Jacono. Plus, we had some chapter organizers joining us today. We had Chris Bruyere, Bill Leather, Dwayne Sanders, Jeff Wolf, and Les Rose. Thank you all for being with us. An amazing conversation. Those of you listening out there, please check us out on the web. Join our community, join our organization. We'd love to have you, and we'll see you next time on Facebook Live. Let's zoom out here so everybody can wave and say goodbye. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.